Thank you.
Not more than 10 minutes ago you said you don't make assumptions. Hi. Yeah, I'm sure. Real quickly, and Rob, thank you. Anybody who needs the spelling of the speakers, you can come up here real quick and take a photo if you need.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Thank you so much.
Yep,
And this is the order.
it is the order. Yep, correct. As you can see, we even put up there, don't forget to repeat the question.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And then again, so this will be the last time, I think this is probably all we're gonna have, is gonna be my guess. So last reminder, as you ask your questions after the remarks, don't forget to introduce yourself and your media organization. You don't have to do it every single time, but the first time would be great. Thank you. Dan, are we gonna be ready? Yep, we're all good. Thank you. Are you taking photos? All right. Rob, we're gonna be fine.
Okay.
Is there anything else I can do for you, Rob? You need a, I don't know, caviar,
Yeah,
spritzer?
macchiato or, some sort of, like a, hobo mocha,
Any,
some kind of like Christmas.
almond milk, oat milk, what do you
Yeah.
need?
Yeah, with a candy cane in it.
Yeah. We should just take a Democratic vote and see how much of a diva Rob is.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, well, we got, switched over from TBU to DeGero.
Is this somebody's camera that's gonna be in use?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. guys, they'll be coming through soon.
If you could shut the door, whoever's last. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jen Longacre, and I am the Deputy Communications Director here at the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. Thank you to those of you who joined us this afternoon in person and those of you online watching our live stream. We are here today to announce a significant development in the fire at the Lutsen Lodge Resort that happened in early February of 2024. We have 3 speakers today. First up, we'll have Bureau of Criminal Apprehension Superintendent Drew Evans, State Fire Marshal Dan Cryer, and Cook County Attorney Gene Peterson. Also with us today is ATF Assistant Special Agent in Charge Spence Burnett, and our BCA Senior Analysts Jacqueline Bercier and Emily Hudlow. We'll take questions at the end, but if you guys could hold those until after the presenters give their remarks, that would be great. And with that, we'll have Superintendent Evans step up. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I am Drew Evans. I'm the superintendent at the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Shortly after 1 p.m. yesterday, on Wednesday, December 3rd, Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, Financial Crimes and Fraud special agents working in coordination with Michigan authorities apprehended Bryce Campbell, the owner of Lutsen Resort Lodge, for the 2024 fire that destroyed the lodge. He was taken into custody without incident and is currently in custody in Oakland County, Michigan, in their jail pending extradition here to Minnesota. This was a crime of selfishness. Bryce Campbell put his interests above the livelihood of his employees, the safety of the people that were in the building at the time, and the community that were there, and all of the Minnesotans that loved Lutsen Lodge for generations across our state. He did that, setting this on fire for his own selfish needs in an insurance fraud scheme to gather money in this process, defrauding the insurance company and setting ablaze to this historic lodge. As you'll read in the criminal complaint, he did this, as said, to further his crime of insurance fraud. And any fraud against Minnesotans, whether it's insurance fraud or other frauds, are defrauding all of us, increasing our insurance premiums in these situations and taking advantage of a system that was meant as a safety net for individuals experiencing loss. Like arson, insurance fraud is not a victimless crime. When people commit insurance fraud of any kind, every insured person in Minnesota pays. I commend the work of our BCA Financial Crimes Fraud special agents and analysts who spent 22 long months rooting out the details of Bryce Campbell's plan and his scheme and how he carried it out. This was a methodical investigation that took a lot of investigation, working with a lot of partners to really uncover the scheme that was in place here at this time. We then took him safely into custody this week, as I noted. I'm grateful for the work of our partners at the Minnesota State Fire Marshal Division, who completed a thorough investigation of the complex fire scheme, as this complex, as you covered before, was burned in a significant way. As well as our partners at the ATF, who spent a lot of time working together with the partners here, the Cook County Sheriff's Office, who spent time working on this investigation alongside all the partners, the Cook County Attorney's Office, who's here with us today, as well as the volunteer firefighters of the Lutsen Fire Department, who spent days working to douse the flames. And to the people of northeastern Minnesota and Minnesotans everywhere who have visited this historic lodge in our North Shore, We appreciate your patience as we conducted our investigation, and we recognize how significant this loss is to that area of this state. And with that, I will turn it over to State Fire Marshal Dan Cryer.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Cryer, and I have the honor of serving as the Minnesota State Fire Marshal. So as Superintendent Evans mentioned, fraud is not a victimless crime, and arson is not a victimless crime. I recall moments after the fire, the day after the fire, I talked to the Lutsen Fire Chief, making sure that he had enough resources to be able to extinguish the fire, that we could prepare ourselves to do a thorough investigation. And that fire chief talked about how he and his wife met while they worked at the lodge. And that told me how important this property was to them. And he mentioned how many firefighters on his department also worked at the lodge and the memories that they have. A few weeks later, a friend of mine who's a retired deputy chief from the city of Brooklyn Park talked about visiting that lodge regularly with his wife for their anniversaries. And that spoke volumes to me about the importance of this historic lodge to the community and across the state. In my office, as well as our partners here behind me, we made sure that we dedicated as many resources as possible to complete that thorough investigation to bring us to where we are today. There are so many people that I want to thank for helping us to get where we're at today. First and foremost, the community. We received a lot of questions over the past almost 2 years from the media, from community members. When will the report be complete? Do you have any other additional information? I appreciate you staying away from the scene, preserving evidence, providing tips, and helping support this thorough and successful investigation. Thank you for staying patient, and thank you for helping us gather evidence to find answers. As Superintendent Evans mentioned, this fire investigation, the scene was incredibly complex. We have a 3-story building burnt to the ground. All the evidence is in the basement. We have to sift through what's burned, what's not burned, what's damaged, be able to try to identify the fire patterns and the evidence that we use as investigators to determine where the fire started and try to get to that answer of how the fire started. That takes time to work through that scene. We put a lot of resources from the State Fire Marshal Division up there. At one point, we had 8 of my staff. That was about 10% of my staff up there, from fire protection folks, hotel, motel inspectors, to fire investigators, all putting their heads together to try to figure out where did the fire start, what are some possible reasons that the fire grew in the way that it did, and what are some possible causes for us to explore. To my team, your diligent work and thorough work, time investigating cannot be understated and will not go unnoticed. To our local, state, and our federal partners at the ATF, thank you so much for your collaboration. This was truly a team effort, much like all of the investigations we do at the State Fire Marshal Division. In a final note, while our investigation work is done here, I want to take this moment to remind everyone that fire safety is important for all of us. So while today we may be talking about an arson fire, I want everyone to keep in mind that we want you to be safe and practice fire safety at home because we want to prevent all types of fires, accidental and intentional. Together, we can save lives and reduce the property loss from fire in our state. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Cook County Attorney.
Good afternoon. My name is Jean Peterson. I'm the Cook County Attorney. Thank you for being here. I will start by acknowledging that we are nearly 22 months out from the date of the fire, but we are only in the initial phase of the court process. So I will keep my comments brief and limited to what is in the complaint and our filings. I want to thank those that responded to the Lutsen Resort fire, including the area fire departments and local law enforcement. I want to thank the investigative agencies, including the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the State Fire Marshal's Office, who have worked methodically since that time. And I want to thank the public for its patience. The nearly 140-year-old Lundy building was an iconic site where many couples got married and many families returned year after year. The loss of the resort is deeply felt by many. Again, we are in the very earliest stages of the court process, so what I can share at this time is that Bryce Campbell, the sole owner of North Shore Land Company and North Shore Resort Company, which operated Lutsen Resort since 2018, has been charged with 3 counts of arson in the first degree and 1 count of insurance fraud. The complaint is merely an allegation, and Mr. Campbell remains innocent until proven guilty. He has rights and is entitled to a jury of his peers. That's what I can share at this point. Thank you.
We'll take questions, but please say your name and your media outlet before you ask. Rob?
Rob Olson with Fox 9. Can anybody state, what was it that led to the charges and the arrest now? Was there recent developments in the investigation, and maybe some of the things in the complaint to reference investigation around the water, the boilers?
Yeah, so the question for everybody was what led to the arrest now, and what, we said at the outset of this, and I think was alluded to by everybody, this was a methodical investigation. With any arson investigation and insurance fraud type scheme, individuals will take steps to cover up what they are doing in that process. And so as this team standing behind me and the agents that are still out working right now, there was a number of evidence that they needed to gather. There were records they needed to gather. There were search warrants that they had to do. Every time we did that, this was piecing together a case month after month methodically, so we presented the information to the county attorney so that they got to the point there was probable cause. There was no one single thing that pushed this over the edge at this point in time. It was a totality of all of the evidence finally culminating to the point where there was probable cause to charge him in this particular case. What you're referencing is some of the water heaters. There's been testing that's been being done by the agents, analysts, the state fire marshal, our BCA laboratory, and private consultants to work through some final pieces of that to answer some questions the prosecutors had in that case.
Can anyone speak to the significance of that? Is what's contained in the complaint? Explain the context of that.
Well, I think in this particular instance, we're going to, defer to the complaint as really laying out the facts as they are today. And there's a lot, as the county attorney noted, that needs to go in front of the court and disclose the defense and debate the significance of that. I will note for this group, it's significant because it's in the complaint. If we didn't feel that the information was pertinent and significant in the findings in terms of that information regarding some testing that we did on boilers that were in the area where this fire started, we wouldn't have included them in the complaint.
With the Star Tribune, do you know how the fire started and when exactly that happened?
Yeah, so unfortunately, with the complexity of the scene, we don't know the circumstances of how it started. So every fire, we're going to look at all of the possible ignition sources in the area of origin. And our investigator was able to eliminate a number of sources, but there were still a few remaining, including the possibility of an intentionally set fire. So we don't have the circumstances of how the fire started. As far as to when the fire started, we know the date of the fire, so it started in the evening and resulted in the response by the fire department.
Ashley Graham, WCCO, can you talk a little bit about the accelerant? There was some mentioned in that complaint, some possible different sources of that, or?
Sure. So the question, sorry, I forgot to repeat the other question. Question about the accelerant that's referenced in the complaint. I don't want to get into specifics about the accelerants, what was testing. Obviously, with any type of intentionally set fire, you can start a fire with ordinary combustibles. We all do that with our bonfires. So there needs to be a competent fuel source. And so the most common type of fuel source used for an intentionally set fire, which in this case could lead to arson, would be an accelerant, something like an ignitable liquid. So our investigators always try to rule that out or rule that in as a fact by doing some testing through collecting samples. When we get an identity of what it is through the chemical analysis from the BCA lab, we then also perform exemplar testing on clean samples or comparable samples to say, yes, this source would be competent or not competent. So those are some examples of how an accelerant would be tested or could be brought into the complaint for this case.
Renee Cooper, KSTP. Wondering, have there been any other suspects throughout this investigation, and do any other suspects remain?
So, with any investigation, as we work through those, we're not going to get in the details of the investigation because it's actively being litigated right now. What I will tell you is that this was approached from the team that was here, from everybody that worked together, very holistically. This wasn't focusing on one individual and only one individual. It was looking at determining exactly what happened and then working back through the individuals. Obviously, in a case like this, when you look at the person that owned this as they started digging into the various financial records that are outlined in the complaint and what was going on, it's certainly going to develop as a person that we need to rule out or have additional discussions with. But in this particular instance, it became clear as we worked through this, as outlined in the complaint, that there were a number of things going on with the individual and the owner in terms of what the motivations were behind this. That lays it out in there from the financial situation that this lodge was in. And then couple that together with the pieces as they were trying to track down the whereabouts of him throughout this time period. And that's what took so much time, is to really piece together that timeline as you're working with a location that was completely obliterated from the fire, to really understand what happened. And it leads us to that conclusion through the totality of everything they learned, that he's the individual responsible for this fire and intentional fire and the insurance fraud that was being committed.
I have one other question, maybe finish this. What happens now, both in terms of the defendant, when he might be brought back to Minnesota and make an appearance, and what is the status of the property itself?
Question regarding the court process moving forward would be that Mr. Campbell has waived extradition in Michigan, where he was apprehended, and we are awaiting scheduling in Minnesota. It'll depend on his transport.
Okay, and then in terms of the property, what's its status in terms of its ownership, et cetera?
I would,
We don't know that.
thank you.
Fair enough.
We can follow up on that.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Ian Russell from Carolyn, can you talk a little bit, obviously it's a very complex timeline for 22 months to investigate this. Was there a specific moment or period of time where it switched from we're looking at this broadly to figure out the cause and more of a we're looking at this as intentionally set? Was there a specific point in time when that came about?
So the question is about, was there a specific point in time as they were looking at this? I think from the early phases that they were looking through this, that there certainly was questions as to what had occurred in this case, given the nature of how the fire progressed through the building and what happened and the timeline, and then a number of other things that were going on. I would tell you, as they progressed through this investigation, it's one of those situations where it just became more clear as they continued to investigate that not only is this intentionally set with this motivation, but that this was the individuals responsible. It's always difficult in a situation to say when you decided that this is what happened. When we decided this is what happened is when there was enough probable cause to present to the county attorney to bring charges going forward. So this is the week where all of that culminated, that we believe we have enough evidence to charge him in that case, and we'll continue to investigate and provide follow-up as needed.
We'll take one more if anyone has one.
I guess I'll ask, I mean, may as well not waste it. Why, is there any explanation for, or did the suspect say anything about why he's in Michigan?
So the question is about why was the suspect in Michigan? The suspect was in Michigan for personal reasons at this time, and we were aware that he was going to be at that location, and so that's why we're working with Michigan authorities on that. I think as it lays out there, there's an address here, but also as a Canadian citizen as well. So we were working with him over and over. We have talked to him through this investigation on different occasions and have had the opportunity to talk to him about what occurred there.
Thank you, and we sent out a news release with the link to the criminal complaint and his booking photos, so you guys should have that. Thanks.
Thank you very much.